Hello. Welcome in, folks. Anyone who happens to be here. Actually, I'm going to summon my regulars from Discord here. Just so there's someone to talk to. I hate talking to myself. Hello. Alright, I meant to go live exclusively on YouTube, but apparently I don't know how to do that well. So, here we are. That's okay though. That's okay. We're gonna talk a little bit about the games I'm doing and I'm involved in. Don't worry, there's not any major curveballs for the people that are worried about curveballs. There's some good news, some disappointing news, nothing too surprising, but news nonetheless. Maybe I'll start with getting this group in first off. Let me do that right now. Since I'm live on Twitch, I'll just post it on Twitch. Might as well. Wasn't my intention, but here we are. And then maybe I'll post a YouTube link just in case someone would prefer it. Let me see. Okay. Let's talk games and updates here, the various projects I'm involved in. Let's start with some of the basics. So this isn't intended necessarily for anyone to come check out. This is probably more so for people that are already subscribed to me or are interested in what I do. So if you're not happy with this outcome, go find something else to do. I don't know what to say. What I'm ultimately doing is updating some of the list and details on the games I am running. And from there, we'll talk about things that have led me to here and what my plan and vision is going forward. I should probably talk with, just be blunt about how since the holiday, things haven't really been that consistent, or rather, you might be seeing more activity on my channel while still seeing less games. Those things aren't intentionally meant to be swapping out one for the other, but there might be some key linkages there. So first off, just to explain some of the personal stuff going on without getting too in detail about it. I stopped my secondary job roughly this summer with the intention of trying to take this on and seeing if I could make a bit of a secondary income out of the time and effort here. I had kind of two key strategies I was going to do that through. One was my content on YouTube, and the second was my content, my start playing professional GM services. So neither of those targets were really geared at, well, I guess a little bit at what we're doing in regards to our actual stream games. The overlap with the stream games really comes down to this. My stream games sometimes have subscriptions that end up resulting in that. Hey, what's up? I'm going to say hi to people here. Malachi, welcome in. Serpentize Muse, welcome in. Cats Meow, welcome in. My goal is to basically, there's a lot of time that goes into this thing. There's a lot of sort of costs just to do the basic things. Discord Nitro, any services like Roll20 Pro is a monthly subscription. And then the things I choose to purchase to enhance my campaigns, which I might own anyways, but it's nice to be able to say, like, at the end of the day, I can at least offset those. So I do have one startplaying.games service that I've been running for a while. That group is on this list of campaigns, or one of the ones they consider part of the core game now. That's Nintelia's Legacy. They agreed as a group to a stream game, so as a result, they have a quite a significant discount from my base rate and Start Playing, which makes it feel a little bit more, I guess, friendly in a way. So maybe starting with Nintelia's Legacy, things seem to be going smooth there. We do have one slot absent. I'm reluctant to, or vacant. I'm reluctant to go and hire on that because go recruit on that because how do I put this? Well, we're nearing a point where I'm not sure an entry-level person would feel like they could keep up. Like, this is 502. Let's just go ahead and move this out to the actual year. We're actually all the way to 505 now. These three games have moved out to 505. 1 second here, folks. I'm just going to do something. This will help me articulate better. I find I articulate better with creatine. All right, I'm back. So let's talk about the personal stuff, and then we can dig more into the games. But yeah, I had a family member the last couple of weeks here have a stroke, and while it wasn't immediately life-threatening, it was still physical damage to the brain, which is a worry. And then we had one of our games actually lead to kind of like an ambulance trip for that family member midstream, which cut that one short. But obviously that's a growing stress on the family. There's other stresses that are a little bit more, I guess, like political. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on them. I don't even care to offer my opinion on it, like, publicly here. Just simple to say, I'm a U.S. citizen. I live in Canada, and you can probably read between the lines there around how that looks. I have 2 Canadian children. And I've built a house here. I'm not planning to move anytime soon. So we will see how the news goes that way. And I know I'm not alone one way or the other for dealing with, like, some of these big changes coming. But nevertheless, it takes a toll. On the positive side, I've also spent some of my free time in January getting caught up on things that I've needed to do for a very long time. So I've got, like, my passport back so I can visit home. Same with my permanent resident card because of the 2 travel things. So I had to renew those. They expired during COVID. I also started my Canadian citizenship. So that was, like, before all this. It had nothing to do with the panic. It was just literally having certain things. It's costly too. It's like $800. So it's a matter of when can I carve out the time, the money, and the space to do it. And I think I pulled the trigger at the right time. My original plan was simply dual citizenship. We will see how that falls out in the long run. I know tax-wise, the U.S. doesn't really like people. Like, you have to formally relinquish your citizenship these days, anyways. So I know when I first became a permanent resident, people were worried you might lose your citizenship. Like, if you apply for citizenship elsewhere, it seems to be less the cause because the U.S. still wants your tax dollars. So, or at least the equivalent. They have like tax credits that they pay back and forth to one another. So yeah, that is where things are at for me personally. But it's also worth noting, if I were to do a quick check-in to where I'm at versus my targets with the side job, I've really struggled to get that second start playing game off the ground. I was targeting at least like minimum 2. That hasn't happened. So I'm not necessarily at a point where I'm considering going back to bouncing or doing anything else necessarily as a starting job. I still want to stay in the space, but it will become more of a point of contention for me going forward to prioritize that. And it's possible, depending on how much economic strain occurs, that maybe I need to emphasize a little bit more of making money than doing some of these things I do on the side. My priority will always be my project that I'm doing here, the Arthuriana timeline, and then prioritizing within that. So for those of you that are worried about Salisbury Anarchy or the Summerlin game, Intelli's Legacy, I think we'll be doing check-ins with people, right? Because it really is a joint thing. But I'm prepared to play through the Great Pendragon campaign. I didn't start it to stop it. I want to run that. As we've gone through, starting with the Salisbury prologue, I decided to open up the world to kind of more of a shared universe with other games, and I've drastically enjoyed that, and I've always wanted to do something like that. My plan is to continue that. It may be all 3 games I have now plus Open Pendragon. It's possible that some of those things may come and go or may fall. So let's dive into the games, and we can talk about things that I'm doing outside of games as well. One sec here. Okay, so for those of you who are maybe just chiming in, you're not as familiar with my backlog or what I've been doing before this. I started with a prologue way back in, I want to say like 2021, maybe 2022. I want to say it was probably late 2021. The prologue was meant to be kind of like oh my god, I don't know what I'm doing with Pendragon. Yeah, I've been watching streams of it, and I've owned the books for years, but I've never actually run it. So it was kind of getting the feet wet with the players. So we decided to take Household Knights. Oh, hey, Lady Magdala, welcome in. And I see, yeah, welcome in, friend. I'll do a shout out. Anyways, it was meant to be attached to the other games, so they played Household Knights like cousins, effectively, of their main characters, or in one case, a half-brother of their main characters. It was a lot of fun. It drew on a long time. It was like 25 episodes by itself. It allowed us to work out like a ton of kinks in the streaming, because we never streamed games before, so we convinced one of our players to go on camera that wasn't on camera originally. We got a lot of our audio nonsense ironed out. We had regular technical difficulties that have reduced towards elimination. But it still goes down as one of the best, like, start to finish little campaigns I've done. Probably lasted a year. And that was the year 480 to 484. From there, we went into like a bit of a crossover with my first expansion, which was set in the county of Summerland. Favored Sons, talk about the prologue, follows the story of 3 young household knights of Salisbury during the late reign of the High King Aurelius Ambrosius and the early reign of King Uther Pendragon. Yes, indeed. Beautiful dream, no tech issues. Yeah. Well, I shouldn't even have said anything about it because I probably will jinx myself. Watch. Moving on next, as we got into like the 485 realm, we did a little bit of a prologue for this new game since it was a bit of a branch out into a second game. I just realized that was a pun. It wasn't my intention. We have the Barrow Vale. The Barrow Vale, which I've since renamed. I'm going back to Gathering of Branches. I'm going to refer to that first set as the only Gathering of Branches. And then this whole campaign will be called the Great Somerset Campaign. So it's set in the mystical county of Summerland. We have a non-binary but non-male cast. The Barrow Vale follows a young maiden, the daughter of an esquire, and a common daughter born with the magical sight, as the residents of Barrowcrest Manor. Ooh, man, I gotta fix that. A manor of some import as it borders the infamous Unseelie crossover site. So it's kind of like a off Pendragon campaign. Yes, it's Pendragon related, but it deals more like magic and fairies and the paganism side of the game rather than Christian miracles and Roman and British Christian knights. And it still deals with the King Uther bit, but it's more from the other side of things. So sometimes they're exposed to secrets that the rest of the groups wouldn't or shouldn't really be connected to. Yes, Mists of Avalon is probably a good reference. We have the Sword of Victory. So Sword of Victory is when we first ran the Salisbury game. It's a continuation of the Salisbury Knights. Started in Favored Sons, but now we switch over to their main characters. The Swords of Victory follows the height of King Uther's reign from perspective of knights responsible for retrieving Excalibur. And this is when we launched Open Pendragon. This is our community drop-in Pendragon. I'm going to talk about that now. I'm going to pause and talk about that now because I think it's important. Open Pendragon has always been something I wanted to do more. But it does come at a cost. It's straining. It can be tiring to do. It's geared at free and I want to keep it that way. But when I look at the scenario I have and the costs I incur and the overall time I have and the creative energy it takes to run it, I am kind of rethinking it. I do want to keep it going. I'd like to get it out of life support, to be honest, and I thought I had a good plan for that and it didn't work, so I'm always feeling guilt around this one. This is probably the only game I have active right now that I'm feeling guilt towards, if I'm honest about it, because it's something for the community and I don't want to like bait and switch people in where they're like, oh, I'll join Open Pendragon, and then just hope that's a bait for them to join my stream fam and follow the other games. It is literally meant for them to exist in my stream world and allow like these mercenary knights and landless knights to have an opportunity to actually like participate. But I'll get into a little bit more of what my plan is going forward with it. But I will say that when it comes to priorities, it will always take the backseat to my streamed campaigns. It just has to. And hopefully won't take the backseat to anything else. The other struggle with Open Pendragon is if I can't run it consistently enough, it falls behind the live games, and then it becomes not only less meaningful to me, because now rather than helping to flesh out what's going on in other parts of the world that the other game isn't taking part of. Now I'm having to do that weird thing where I try to avoid any time incongruencies that happen. I'm running into that a lot with some of my current projects, or players that can't play at those times end up with these characters that just age. And I want to keep the verisimilitude of the setting. So I'm not going to let people just like live forever, or I hate retcons. All that's a problem. It has to make sense. And send into fairy. I hate that. I know it was a joke. I don't mind doing it every once in a while. It's part of the setting. It can't be the go-to. The go-to, that just ruins the whole point of it, right? So it can't be the regular piece. So Open Pendragon, we'll talk a little bit more about that. We do have active projects, and they've been running fairly well. They're just not consistent. And some of that's just life, man. I hurt my back today, and I had to not run today because of that. I'm actually on back pain meds, so we'll see if maybe that's part of why I'm not using my words very well today. Okay, continuing down the list, we did a short Pro GM game on Start Playing in Malahut, which is like the north of England, and it went pretty well. That's where I met Bert, and Bert continued on to play in other games, so definitely worth that time. Fall of Uther, so this continued. Those are the games that were set in 485-ish to 490. Then from 491 forward, we got into kind of our last leg of Uther's reign, specifically with the Fall of Uther. So the decline of Uther Pendragon, starting with his siege of Tintagel and the mystery that takes place that night. Fall of Uther continues from the perspective of the Salisbury Knights. And then over in Summerland, The Thinning Mist is a continuation of Gathering of Branches. Our protagonists find themselves reaching adulthood and being thrust towards increased responsibility as they encounter the consequences of the hidden truth that the land and the king are one. Right? Oh, back issues are the worst. I'm sorry to hear that, Lady Magdala. Yeah. It's really cold here, and I'm pretty strong, but I hit an ice wall while I was charging at snow with a shovel that I didn't know it existed. So it got really cold in like 2 days, and snow turned to like an ice block, and I hit it full speed with the shovel, and I could feel it like that. What do the football players call it? The ting up and down the spine the moment I hit it. So I was real worried about it, but it does seem to be like already, even before the meds, it's vastly improved in 1 day. So as someone that's tweaked my back multiple times from powerlifting, I'm not too worried about it, actually. It seems like it's on the right mend. But it was enough to not want to sit in a chair this morning. So post Uther, we got into the very start of Anarchy, and we kind of had 3 little side games. I don't want to talk too much about them. We'll just read the lines. Saxon series was a mini-series from the perspective of the Saxon King Cerdic, last living son of Vertigern, and his return to the Isle of Britain. Yeah, a cartoon image of me hitting that ice wall. Yeah, where it's almost like the Looney Tunes where they're like vibrating out of the. Yeah, totally. That's what it felt like, honestly. So the Realm of Rivalry, with the death of Duke Eldol of Glevum, who was really famous for fending off the Saxon assassins at the Night of Long Knives with only a table leg. Realm of Rivalry is a mini-series that explores our Gathering of Branches secondary characters. So this gave us an opportunity to, one, kind of tell what's going on between Glevum and Clarence, while also fleshing out the knight characters that are playing in the background there of our Gathering of Branches game. So that if any of the main characters die, players are well poised to potentially play that knight. They also can make a new character and just keep that character as a secondary. All right. So after the death of Uther, spoilers, I guess. Won't talk about how he dies. We move into the period of anarchy, which is, as you can tell, like we started in 480 and Uther was dead by 495. Anarchy started in 496 and we're already at 505. So you could argue that anarchy really starts in the middle of 495. So we're about 10 years into the game. Anarchy is a long period. My understanding is this is the period where most people like stop playing the Great Pendragon campaign. They like just kind of lose wind of it, or it gets too divided. And I will say, with all the vignettes and all the different ways this could go, it can feel aimless versus those early years where it's like Uther's attacking this group, and they're like, "Well, I guess we're going." You know, that's how those early years were. They didn't have a choice. Now they're like lords and stuff, and you know, there's this huge political intrigue mess that can be hard for a player to track. Talking a bit about each game, the Salisbury Anarchy follows our Salisbury Knights, the houses of Winterbourne, Stoke, Edmiston, and Durdford, as well as Newton Manor, as they witness a fate far worse than Britain under the Pendragon, with no king of Logres and no lord of the age to call their own. Anarchy is at its peak from the viewpoint of Salisbury. The players have navigated really well through this. It didn't look like it, honestly. By the time the sword tournament, or not the sword tournament, by the time the Marshals tournament happened in Salisbury, I thought you guys were donezo. I thought you guys were gonna crumble, because there was no alliance between the three key players, and that's the whole point of the players have to matter. So if those characters weren't going to work together towards any goals, like things are gonna crumble because no one else is gonna pick up things and do that. There was also a risk that Lady Ellen could have died by now. She hasn't. That Robert could have then gotten sort of cooed, right? Because if he was young enough without a regent, who knows how that would have gone. And then who knows what would have happened with Lady Jenna or the ongoing rivalry with Silchester. So Salisbury Anarchy is going well into this next period. I'm not going to name when that's happening. I think it's important I don't. But we are all the way into... It says 505. Here, I'll just do this. Why does it say 4 columns left? What? There we go. Yeah, so we're all the way into 506, actually. Okay. Continuing on, Summerlin Enchantment. So there are different parts of periods of enchantment in Britain through the Great Pendragon campaign. As they allude to the Force Sauvage kind of being something that comes with the enchantment of Britain, it makes sense that Summerland would also experience that at this time. You could almost divide this end part of Summerland Enchantment into its own like thing, like we did with the Fall of Uther, but I don't think we will. I think we'll still call it Summerland Enchantment through Anarchy, and then we can close, because at the end of the day, despite what's happening there, Summerland is still enchanted. So we're seeing sort of even more of a fairy overlap with the regular world. And then we have what was going to be a short-term game. We'll see if it continues. We have Ninteliad's Legacy. So this is taking a look at King Ninteliad, who is the number one in line for the heir to the High King of Britain. Mostly because he is of the lineage of Vortimer and then Vortigern. So first son of Vortigern, who was once king, and with Uther's line eradicated, that kind of falls to him. With the exception, you could make one argument. You could make the argument that Cerdic has claimancy, but if it falls through the primary line, it would make Nantiliad still the number one and Cerdic the number two. Both have claimancy to the high kingship through their blood of Vortigern, and with no rightful heir of King Uther or King Constantine before him, or Aurelius, his brother. It seems like that is the rightful heir line right now. And this follows our household knights. As I said, this is a pro GM campaign. It's been a ton of fun, so we will be stopping to look at it at the end of Anarchy. It's possible it could retire at the end of Anarchy. We will definitely have them play through those first couple of years of Boy King, but it's possible they retire there. There's stuff that happens in Carlion that would be just silly not to have them involved in. But it would be a good time for it to end if it does end. We'll be checking in with the cast of Summerland as well, just to make sure that they're on the same page. And anyone who's feeling like they need to kind of step away, that's a good opportunity. I'd like to shake things up a little bit with the Summerland cast, and I still need to figure out what I'm doing with our reoccurring guests of Lucius, Julius, Julianus. So Cyberbro's been awesome there, but we'll see what we're doing in that regard. And our Salisbury game, that is my flagship game. I want to keep that going from start to finish. But I will be, always checking in with the players at the end of every stop. If someone needs to step away, even for one chapter of the game and then come back, I want them. I realize real life's a thing, and so this is a long haul, longer than we originally anticipated. I thought I'd be like way, way further along. Sorry, I got some people to say hi. Hi, Kess, and hi, Tabletop family. Welcome in. But yeah, we'll see where these games are going. I expect Salisbury Anarchy. We will be bringing in Newton Manor again, played by Zach, not Jaren. Jaren will not be played by Zach. That was a decision we set aside and discussed when he claimed the cursed sword that he got his hands on. That made Jaren no longer a playable character. No longer a PC. But we will see where that goes. In Summerland Enchantment, again, looking at whether Cyberbro will stay on or not. Going to be checking in with the 3 regulars on the cast to make sure that they're in the game, to make sure that they're still good for it. I hate to call it a cast because it's really not acted, is it? Like, acted would assume it's scripted, and it's not scripted, so... And then for Nantilia's Legacy, we've got lots of players on that list. I want to check in with them. We also need to determine a post Boy King game direction. Yeah. So I want to be clear, because there's comments coming up about acting and not acting. There are people that will not watch a show when they feel it's scripted. They do not like it. They don't like it at all. So because that sounds like it's predetermined. Acting, yes, improv can be, where's the line between improv and acted, all that. It's easier just to say we role play. You assume the character. Yeah. Okay, and then real quickly, these games, Sundays, Tuesdays, Fridays, more or less every week. not in January or February, or sorry, not in January or December, but usually like at least 3+ times a month. So this has just been kind of a gap that we're catching up with. I mentioned all the stuff I've been going through, and I expect February to iron out. But this week's going to be a little iffy. I've got a very, very busy work week. So I do want to talk about that. I didn't mention this. I don't feel like I really need to, but I'm going to anyways, because I like to be open and honest about it. A lot of change happening in my work outside of this, like my primary job, my profession, including the retirement of my boss, who I've worked for like a decade, and worked with for like 15 years. So really sad to see her go. Happy for her to move on to her next part of her life. But this week we're all in person for strategic meetings. So my brain's going to be like trashed by the end of it, because it's just like lots of thinking, lots of social engagement the whole way through that. And our breaks will be spent in the retirement side of that. With that said, I still plan to launch Summerlin Enchantment Tuesday again. Get that back going. Intellion's Legacy is on for Friday. Salisbury Anarchy should be on for next Sunday. Let's talk about Sundays, because there was something else we were doing on Sundays. That was our BattleTech game. Unfortunately, after talking with AP, who's been kindly GMing over here on my channel for that, the lateness, he is an East Coaster, so the lateness of this game, even if it were to start a little early, is beyond sort of what fits in his schedule and his attempts to adjust his schedule to at the same time. So it is indefinitely, I would say, on hold / canceled, with one exception. I talked to him tonight about trying to close it out with like a one-time banger that could be scheduled in like off hours, something more accommodating to him while still being accommodating to our two Australian friends. That, you know, it's crazy early. If it's too early, it's crazy early for them. So we will see. We'll see if that happens. But I'm excited, and I hate the idea of like canceled projects. I like the idea of reassessing the scope of one of these games and going, you know what, this doesn't make sense anymore. Let's give it a close. I think that's a graceful way to do it, but I hate when games just like die and then you go back. Usually at the time you're like comfortable with it. Later on you kind of regret it. You're like, man, you know, the parts, usually when you're ready to call a game like that quits, you're like, well, that's really inconvenient to try and do anything about it. Maybe you're burned out by it. So like the last thing you want to do is put more time and energy into it. But I've found that when I let games go that way without trying my best, I always kind of regret it, because there's no like reunion cast like they get to do with bands, where they get to make up 20 years later and figure it out. It's just closed and awkward. So aiming to avoid that. Okay. I'm going to talk real quickly about what's next. What should I talk about next? We'll talk about the two open Pendragon things we do have on the go right now. We have Anarchy in Londinium and Anarchy in the Vale. I won't put the pictures in right now, but I'm going to put these in. So Anarchy in the Vale, the cast there has been really organized. Despite it being infrequent around the holidays, it was fairly frequent before that. It's the one that takes place Sunday mornings, which is, you know, why I had to miss it today for drawing my back. But we did play the week before, and we closed out a year. So they're only about a year behind 506, like, which is where these games are kicking off into. That's not so bad. A year behind's not so bad. Veil isn't something that's sort of critical to the game, these other games, so I'm not as worried about it. I guess it's going along smoothly. Anarchy in Londinium is a problem. When I say it's a problem, we haven't even closed out. Like, I'm going to skip forward from 503 to 504, but we're just entering 504. So it's falling out over a year behind where I need it to be. It's got one of our secondary knights from Salisbury Anarchy in it, which is awkward, honestly. I love that he's there. We put him there in Anarchy, so it's fun to see how that follows up in Londinium. And the game is very unique and different. It's almost like a spy game with knights being fish out of the water, because guess who aren't naturally capable of being spies? Like honored knights, right? So it's a fun thing, but its lack of being able to be consistent has pushed it way behind the mark. So I'm gonna have to do something about that. It's possible that I'll hit a point where I actually put the games on hold for a couple of weeks to get Londinium completed. Unfortunately, it runs Mondays. It would have run tomorrow. We have a cast member moving right now, so I'm reluctant to try and make that happen. So we're just gonna have to try the week after. I'm willing to put in extra Mondays. I'm trying not to, so that's the other thing. Every time these things get behind, montage you on track. I like that, but it takes away player agency. So there is a fine line between that. I would love to montage you ahead. You know, there might be something I can do with things true. I have some tools from other games that I can talk about. But yeah, it is a problem. Like I said, I start to feel guilty when they fall behind, and this one actually adds stress because it's so far behind and I need it to get back in gear. So I will be thinking more about strategy around that. I think when you montage things forward, though, if you don't do them carefully with everyone on board, it feels like it takes the player agency away a little bit to skip a bunch of time. So we'll figure that out. There will also be Open Pendragon. When I say there will be Open Pendragon, there's one person that I want to make sure gets a shot to end their arc, and by end I mean they've had an arc through the game. That's Sir Tiberius, played by Jeremy. I've promised him and fallen short on promises that we will get something going that would fit his timeline and schedule, even in the short term. And I think there's something where I'll be haranguing the right group together for those that were involved in Liam's Open Pendragon stuff and were tied closely with what was going on in Heartland. I want to try to bring that to a close. So I'm going to be looking for the potential of a Thursday night thing, but I can't do that consistently. So this brings up the greater issue I have with Open Pendragon, is that if we have people sign on and we don't put them in these little campaigns like this, their characters just age. So it's almost like we need to change the pitch a little bit of the game so that players understand that they're just aging, you know? That if you're making a character and you're not attached to an ongoing campaign, yes, we can slot you in at certain times, but you'll also be there's a risk that you'll never be able to make any of the times for anything going on, and your character just ages because you brought them in twice to really relevant things, and I can't justify retconning backwards when they did something significant. So we'll be avoiding retcons, and it's just a risk. So it's almost like Open Pendragon. You'll be playing not a knight, you'll be playing that knight's lineage forward, and sometimes that will mean like montaging your way through from, let's say you played last in 489 and now it's 505. Now you're an aged knight. Sorry, I know there's lots of things that you should have done there. I'll also be getting with you, Trent. I know you're here, so I'll mention this, to talk about how we could engage that group without putting more pressure on me to do anything with my meta, right? So how could we make, especially in the days of Boy King forward, it's like, what could we do to make these knights feel like they're questing knights, make them still feel relevant, give them a shot, albeit probably very unlikely shot of landing on the round table at some point, you know? Maybe it's through a generation or two they do, or but at least being part of King Arthur's court. So Open Pendragon won't be for a player to feel like they're in the lead character or even a lead character. You are playing more like a simulation where maybe your character can do something great. Maybe they don't, though. You know, it's not a campaign. I can't promise you the same sort of outcomes that I can in a campaign. It's got a little bit more of that mudcore D&D vibe to it, Shadow Dark and stuff like that, where it's like maybe you just are the knight that falls off your horse and dies, you know. And that is a note. That's why I made these guys mercenaries. It's why I made this game feel that way. I wanted it to feel more like you're getting a little bit more of a you're getting some exposure to Pendragon, so you can at least dip your toes in the water and see what you like and see what you don't. But I'm not there to make you and your character feel awesome the way I normally would as a GM. I just, it doesn't make sense. I can't afford to run a, like, I don't want to use the word free, but it is free. It's like a lot of time in. I've done these types of projects. Ageless Masquerade is my most recent one, but I did a Marvel one before that, a 7C one before that, a World of Darkness one before that. These 24/7 chats and things like that are exhausting. They're draining. West March style games, they're a lot of work, and I'm not willing to do that, to put up with all the drama around that and everything else, and the incurred time cost for free. So it's just not something I'm entertaining. It's a lot of drama, a lot of stress for very little value other than promoting and spreading one of my, like, bigger, like, I love this game. So that will always be a highlight, is being able to go, yay, I love this game, but it's still not worth it. Not quite. Yeah. So, you know, we'll do a better job with Open Pendragon. I still think there's something great there. And maybe I can make more sense of it. I feel like there's something there I haven't tapped into. We are still getting people that are coming in asking about it, and that's great by itself. But I think I'm going to have to, you know, one thing I did propose is we explored, I know I'm spending a lot of time on Open Pendragon, but it is the community one. I think we do need to talk about it. We tried, like, doing journals because people love that stuff. We talked a little bit about allowing people to do, like, side text role play. My concern with the side text role play is things escalate real quick. Like, they can quickly, like, time and distance don't matter. And so, like, someone hears a rumor and then everyone in the game hears the rumor. It's just stupid, and I don't want that at all. I have games isolated on purpose, and I don't want that part of it. I don't like that. I find it really dumb. People are like, oh, a mage, let's go get magic items from them. You know, like, I don't want that stuff. Like, that, it's just stuff I hate in these games. So I'm open to the idea of Open Pendragon being a place where players who aren't a part of any other campaign, their knights can contribute, but that is going to be it. It's got to be in its own pocketed shell, and in that Open Pendragon would almost become more meta adjacent to my Arthuriana campaigns. So I will have the right in Open Pendragon to stamp something with meta, or say, no, that's just some tale on the side, doesn't necessarily fit in the meta, so sorry. We'll see where that goes. But I have higher hopes. I think Open Pendragon can become a really great recruitment tool to players that don't have exposure to Pendragon. I just got to find the right place. So continuing on past Open Pendragon, that pretty much deals with everything I'm running right now. I'm going to cancel the Call of Cthulhu campaign idea, or at least shelf it, and it'll be a long shelf. The reason why I say it'll be on the shelf for a long time is because I'd originally had this idea to branch out past Pendragon. Still would like to a bit, but I wanted a right cast. I didn't want it to just be the same faces you see on all our games. And we only did so well at recruiting some people there. So I found out that the Cat's Meow, aka Mark, for those who know him, is also running a vampire game scheduled that same night. So we'd also be competing for views against each other in the same circle. So I actually I'm going to leave Mark because I'm not sure Mark has mentioned the details on that game yet, but we've merged. So I took the couple players I did have scheduled for that, and we took his game, and I will be a player over at the Cat's Meow on Wednesdays, which is lovely because I can do TTRPG stuff every single day of the week, but running every single day of the week is obnoxious. Okay, I'm told I can give the basics. We are playing a campaign based on the House of Tremere, where we will all be Tremere, and yeah, if you like Vampire the Masquerade, I will be always advertising for that. So please keep a lookout for it. Welcome in, Krabby Apple. All right. As most of you know, I've played Salubri a lot, so it'd probably be really funny to see me play Tremere. But Tremere was the first clan I ever played. True story. It lasted 2 whole sessions before my character died. But I it's the only type of mage I've really looked forward to. Like, I don't like D&D style mages. I'd rather play like Ars Magica mages, especially now that I got to experience that. So those are every single one of my streamed projects. Now I'll talk about a couple of experiences I've gotten to do and will kind of continue to do. Still in the game realm, on Friday nights after I finished Intelli's Legacy, I rapidly drive over to my friend Flint's house and we play I don't actually own that book. I'll show this book. This is The One Ring, which might even be my preference for a game, but we play the D&D 5e spin-off of that called Lord of the Rings RPG, so it uses the same concepts in The One Ring but in a D&D format. That's been a lot of fun. We're playing, we played through the previous version, the one based on the One Ring first edition, called Adventures of Middle Earth. We played through a whole Mirkwood campaign. Now we're playing in Eriador at the 5 years, 1 year after Aragorn starts journeying, and we're playing other Dunedain attached to him, so followers of him. It's been a lot of fun. Looking forward to that. I love that setting. I like this system. Some of the D&D stuff drives me nuts. I'm gonna be honest. Most of you know I'm not a big fan of D&D. The D&D portions of that drive me nuts, because I've always said that D&D is mostly a war game since 3rd edition forward. It's about moving components on a grid, and if you don't have a grid, a lot of the things that your abilities tell you can do are hand waved and kind of suck that way. So it's like, if the game's doesn't have a grid, it's theater of the mind, then the abilities are either the power scale of the abilities either goes up or down depending on what the ability is. I think things like rogues being able to find a backstab just becomes them going up and saying, I'm going to backstab them. Like, they don't have to worry about getting through a front line and finding their way to a backstab. They can just do it, you know. Or anyone's attacked, I'm going to flank that person who's attacked, but you don't have to worry about attacks of opportunity and all that. So certain things get buffed and certain things get nerfed, and I just don't like it that much. I don't like the non-grid or non-map based 5e, because I think it's inherently a grid or map based system. Yes. The rant aside, I'm also paying for a campaign with my favorite tabletop RPG designer of all time, the guy who made 7C, Legend of the Five Rings, Houses of the Blooded years ago. He's made a whole bunch of small games in between. Those are probably his 3 bigs, I think. John Wick. So I'm playing in a game with him, and I get to play alongside Mark here from all our collab work. It's been a lot of fun playing Dark Ages and playing with Sombra, and it's pretty cool. I'm enjoying that. None of it's all that much of a surprise because I used to follow all of John's like design stuff. His Play Dirty, GM guides, all those things kind of, I think, made me a better GM. Even if I'd say I have a different style than him, but I learned a lot from his style. And I think it's what you're supposed to do with anything. Like, you know, it's not like LeBron didn't learn anything from Michael Jordan's style or Michael Jordan's game, even though Michael Jordan has a different style than him. Like, you still study the greats and you learn from them. And he's a great GM, so it's been a lot of fun. I think that gets through like, one last thing. I'm also getting to do, I got to try a game that I can't talk about because I signed an agreement this Friday as a one-off, and it was super fun. And when I get an opportunity, I will be talking to that game designer, probably on my channel. That leads into the next topic, which is TTRPG talks. So I had the opportunity in December to interview Robert Schroeder, who made the Book of Sires, which is for Pendragon. It's one of my favorite Pendragon supplements. I'd say the 2 I use the most outside of the Great Pendragon campaign is Book of Feasts and Book of Sires. Robert Schroeder, aka Bob, aka Vortimer, as is known on Discord, he was awesome, and he was able to tell us a lot about what's coming with Pendragon and where Pendragon came from. So that was really cool to see. My next interviewee on TTRPG Talks was Peter Corliss, who is the founder of Green Knight Publishing, that has since gone under, but they once held Pendragon and kept Pendragon alive when it was kind of an abandoned cause of Chaosiums at the time. Chaosium was in financial dire straits, and that game ended up landing with Peter Corliss, and I think he steered it along quite finely until it made its way into White Wolf, and then a series of things ended up back in Chaosium, which is probably its true home. But though it was a contentious move, I think I think that the outcome sometimes is better or meant to be when things like that happen. So those are my 2 episodes of TTRPG Talks. They're up on podcast format. You can find them on the YouTube music app. Is it YouTube Music? I think so. Or on the YouTube app if you want to listen as you go. We have guests lined up for February and March, which I'm super excited about. So in February, I'll be bringing John Wick on to talk about his Banners game and potentially his upcoming new project. We'll also kind of delve through some of his history. I'm going to have to be real careful with that one because some of his older work is like some of the stuff that really blew my mind as a player and a GM at a pretty young age in role-playing. And so I don't want to get too caught up in it. I imagine those are, as there's still 2 of his more popular works, they're probably 2 things he's not all that interested in talking about either. So I have to come up with some hard-hitting, like thought, some captivating conversations that aren't just the usual what's your favorite clan in Legend of the Five Rings, like I'm gonna come up with some good things. I think I've asked some pretty good questions to the others and been pretty respectful of their time. I aim to do the same thing with John. After John in March, I am tentatively scheduled to interview the Gentleman Gamer, or Matthew Dawkins, as you might know him. He is a game designer. He's an OG in the YouTube Vampire the Masquerade, or Vampire the Masquerade Tube, might be what it's called, VTM Tube. He has some great projects that he's worked on and is working on, and looking forward to being able to talk to him about it. So that's exciting. I think I can see TTRPG Talks being something monthly as long as I can keep finding guests of enough note to be interesting. So always looking a couple months out. If anyone has any suggestions and you're part of my community, go ahead and DM me with those suggestions and I can reach out. I'm looking mostly for game designers or game designer adjacent in the TTRPG community, because I just think that'll be of the most value. I can certainly extend it to others that are well known in the D&D tube space or TTRPG tube space. So if you're someone with a big YouTube channel and you want to come in and talk to me about your journey, I'd definitely be open to that. But game design focus is what we're aiming for there. Yeah, so that's something I plan to do monthly. Another topic that I've been aiming to do monthly is what did I call it? So you like Pendragon. So we'll be comparing Pendragon to other popular things across all sorts of pop culture and the TTRPG space, especially a couple examples: Lord of the Rings, Crusader Kings, The Green Knight. Looking at these things and showing why, if you like this other thing, if you like Crusader Kings, if you like Lord of the Rings, this is why you should at least give Pendragon a try. These are the overlaps that might make it worth your time. Yeah. Trying to think. I'll continue to put out more of an ad hoc mode, some GM advice or small responses sometimes to other people in the YouTube space. I want to grow my channel on YouTube. Separate from games, I want to be able to provide some content like So You Like Pendragon. And I've really waffled with, you know, I bet if I took any of these super popular TTRPGs and put a bit of content out, I might just draw in a bigger crowd automatically. Maybe not D&D because it's saturated, but like Shadow Dark or any of these Dragonbane or Forbidden Lands, Call of Cthulhu even, right? And I'm not going to say that it's completely outside the realm of possibility, but it's certainly not going to be my focus for the meantime. I think I'm going to zero in a bit on Pendragon, and where I do expand out, it'll be like TTRPG talks, or if I find inspiration towards more of a long-term endeavor, I will probably put some time into that. To talk about something else I'm currently experimenting with, I'm making I'm gonna make a series of videos. I'm gonna start with one, and if it like bombs entirely, I may not even try it again. But I want to do tales from our games, and I'm gonna use my editing software, DaVinci Resolve, to try and make like a map following. I don't if you've ever seen Nerd of the Rings. He does map things a lot on his channel. Let me just see if I can pull up an example since we're live. Let's see if I can do that. I gotta find the right one. Let's try the history of Mirkwood. Okay, here we go. So I'm just going to pause the music here so we can listen to his video, and I'll try not to show too much of it, but I'm sure this is someone who's reacting to it. It's not outside the realm of okay.
Uldor and Sindar. While they are hardy and valiant in fighting alongside the host of Gil-galad,
so he does a lot of these stories about Middle-earth
of the West.
Through a series of pictures that he's edited together, but he also brings in like maps when they're relevant.
The Last Alliance. Orifair himself,
pretty sure there's one coming up.
And his
yeah, there we go. Some moving tokens on a map to show like where things are and relevant.
There he is crowned as the new king.
That's kind of what I'm thinking, is being able to do that sort of thing. And I'm experimenting with that now with a narration voice. Narration voices aren't my strong suit, so we'll see how that goes. But I'm working on a narrative kind of experience, telling some of the tales of things we've gone through in our game, some of the better stories. We will see where it goes. Yeah, if the first one does well, I will probably put a poll out to all our various players for their arcs. It's not going to be like a biography about their character. It's going to be like this specific narrowed arc that they went through from start to completion, or start to long enough to do a part 1, part 2, right? And even if it's unfinished, like we can always do a part 2 on the closing out of it. But yeah, that's one of the things I'm looking at right now. We will see. We'll see if that becomes a reality. So yeah, as noted here, you can tell that pretty much every day of the week I have something related to either my YouTube channel or TTRPGs, and I'm okay with that. I don't play a lot of video games. I'm very active in powerlifting, hitting numbers in my 40s that I never hit in my 30s and 20s. I'm able to juggle the real life stuff pretty well with this. It's what it's taking over is like time I would have wasted in League of Legends or, Marvel Rivals or whatever else. I am playing a little bit of Marvel Rivals. Don't tell anyone. But I'm doing that as part of, hanging out with some friends. So, and yeah, I'm enjoying being plugged in a bit more to the TTRPG YouTube community space, and I'd like to be in there even more. depending on how some real life stuff shakes out. Maybe one day I'll be able to do some of this at the convention level, and maybe one day I'll be able to add to the TTRPG community systems and books and supplements. I'd like to I endeavor to write something myself. I've definitely flirted with and may still complete a Companions of Arthur book just to test the water at the whole experience. But given that we'll have some cost to it, I'm not going to say for sure yet that I'm going to do that. We will see. All right. Do I still have people here? I have a few. Does anyone have any questions for me? I'm going to ask that question, and then I'm going to step away for a minute. So I'm going to type it too, just in case anyone didn't see it. No one has questions for me, please let me know. All right, and I will be back very briefly. All right, I am back. So I got a few questions coming in. I'll just answer those. We're gonna start with over here on YouTube with Krabby Apple, and if I call you a name and I know you by another name, it's only because I like to respect how people. I'm recording this, and it's live, so I'm trying to respect, not allowing for account linkages that you don't want linked, right? So if you don't want people to know your real name, or you don't want them to know who you are on Discord when you're someone else on YouTube, that tends to be why I do that. But here from Krabby Apple, what started you on doing all these tips and tricks, and how do you handle X shorts? I've been seeing a lot of you lately. It's a lot of good insight and advice for some topics, and I have even started incorporating one of the ideas for rowing in the same direction into one of the games I run. Okay, that one actually has a lot of answers, so I'm just sorting it out. I'd say a series of things started me down that. I've been engaging more actively in the YouTube space outside of individual games that I'm running. Originally, it was just my actual plays, but I realized I had this thing click when I was watching a video from the Black Lodge Games, where they chose a fairly like one of my goals with this whole thing obviously was to tell our artistic story and get that out there. I thought that was really cool, but it's also to promote Pendragon, because it's quickly become like my favorite TTRPG of all time, and unhorsed a whole lot of great games to get there, and I wanted to promote the game, but I realized in watching this Black Lodge Games video that they were able to do that with a fairly obscure system, because they already have an audience, right? They have a group that's not there for that thing, they're there in general for them, and then they can advertise that, and it's gonna mean more, it's gonna hit more people that way. So I kind of realized I need to bridge out. I also have I have short of 300 subscribers, and that's I've been at it for a while on YouTube. To have under 300 subscribers is it can be disheartening. I won't say it is disheartening, because we mostly just do actual play content, and like since I've started showing other stuff and promoting other stuff, it's gone up. Like I've gone up like 80 people in 2 months. So beggars can't be choosers, But I've also watched people I know that I really respect in this space go from like 0 to 500 in like a week, right? So and they deserved it. They deserved that climb. This isn't a jealousy thing. It's just like sometimes you see someone else's success, and rather than being jealous of it, you go, man, I gotta be doing something. There's something I can change here. That's how I try to look at it with like powerlifting is the thing I compare most against, because you're constantly trying to climb at your own pace. Sometimes you see these people just do things you can't do, and so oftentimes it's because you're looking at their direction too much. You don't know their whole story. Maybe they're on steroids, maybe they're insanely gifted in that one lift or whatever. Maybe they're just more diligent than you are, and that's the one that's important, because if they're doing something better than you because they're consistent with it, that's deserved. Not that the others aren't, you know what I mean? But I think one of the worst things you can do when you look at comparisons that way, first off, try not to compare. But when you do compare, use it for constructive feedback to yourself. So how can I get to the right spot? I realize I've been GMing for a long time. I don't have a lot of people that have fallen out of my games because they don't like the way I GM. I've gotten a lot of compliments over the years about how I GM. And I'm not young, so I have a lot of experience in the space that I can share. And I thought, it's you know what, those shorts take 2 minutes, not quite, but compared to my other work, they're like 1/100th of the editing time. So they make them worth it that way. It's branching out to other groups that in related interests that might come check out the rest of the channel. I don't hate giving unsolicited advice. Those aren't my most popular videos. I get lots of views, but whoever they're showing them to, there's probably like a quarter down, thumbs downs, so dislikes. So not so sure about that. But it's been fun to do, and I will keep doing that. The rowing in the same direction one, it's something I've run into as a GM myself when I don't get the session 0 right. And it's a way of sort of like covering that ground with the players, both encouraging them, but also setting your boundaries as a GM to be like, this is my expectation. And if they go, well, that's not what my character would do 4 sessions in, you can go, yeah, but I told you on day 1, that's an expectation of this game. So when all of a sudden it starts moving to a PvP thing and they're all going out in their own way, you can just go, you can hold a timeout and bring everyone together and be like, that's not what we discussed. This is going off the rails. And that eliminates that whole, well, that's not what my character would do. It's like, well, you better start thinking about a new character. You know, I'm sorry, that's on you. Like, we're willing to help you, but that's not a good enough excuse to derail the whole game. Never is. And it's not always intentional. Like, people tend to pitch it like it's harmful or intentionally harmful. Like these people always have the insight into themselves to know that they're derailing things. They don't always. Sometimes they just weren't paying enough attention to their character design. They made Wolverine and they didn't consult everyone to know that that they don't want to be the X-Men going after Wolverine to pull you. Logan, we want you back. Please come back. You know, that's what Wolverine requires to be effective in most of the media that's about him, is the X-Men begging him back. So think about that from a player group perspective. Like, if someone makes Wolverine, are the rest of your players going to go pulling him back in all the time? Because if they're not, it's not going to work. So I hope that answers the question. I do intend to keep doing them. They're going to be inspired either to a video I've watched recently. I've upgraded my phone recently to something not as garbage. So looking forward to doing those shorts on that now. Yeah, they'll come up as they come up. They won't be like as consistent of a release. I was asked something, what's my favorite Sir Florence moment so far? I think my favorite, the one that keeps coming up is the one where he ends up with Pomponia, where he has to roll. I don't even know if there's a moment of I probably can answer better than that. I wasn't sure about Florence coming into him because we had such a banger character in Edward, and to get such like a foppish knight, I was like, oh, this feels gross. Like, and you know what? To be fair, we've had a few people in the audience after Edward died that, you know, are watching the backlog, and they have the same response. They're like, oh, Florence? Like, you chose him after Edward? You know what I mean? Because he starts out so flat, and he continues to evolve, and I think that's what's fascinating about him. I'd say the fact that Florence's luck actually seems to roll out in the dice is what is really fun about that. Like, the dice seem to support his incredible luck, from marrying Pomponia to just ending up in the right scenarios, even with not always dice rolls, right? Sometimes it's like the cards he gets lucky on too in the feast. Even to the current plot with Elaine, I think that's really fascinating. I'm trying to think. There was like one really deep, serious moment with Florence. Probably my favorite moment with Florence is him throwing away a chance for legitimacy in royalty. Like, he was literally a child of Vortimer. That's what he found out, and that was another luck thing that came out through some roll table, and then tied in well with one of his background pieces, which was a secret of the family. Yeah, him choosing to let that go rather than push it is in a way one of Florence's biggest moments, because that shows his loyalty to sort of the Merlin's promise, and others promise, right, of a boy king, or the rightful heir of Uther Pendragon, rather than going after what could have been like ambition, which is, to be fair, like most of his arc's been ambition, so it's a real step out of his normal comfort zone. All right. Good God. Just getting back to the other questions. Do you have a favorite moment for the Anarchy games so far? In each of the games, I have some moments I really, really enjoyed. I think for Salisbury, it's probably the Marshals Tournament era. I loved how that political intrigue was there. I loved having like Colin in, and then when Jareth dies, it's such a big moment to have like literally a formal rival of your houses gone in a tournament and then turned into this mystery, and we're able to invite Jaren back, Zach back to that. I liked how much you guys were true to your characters, and they really made it feel like they were on opposing sides to some degree, and were able to come through it with that. So I think that was pretty epic. Like, I think that would be, I talked about doing a Companions of Arthur book. That the Marshals Tournament would probably be the book I would make. I think it would be a fantastic little module, and you could set in Anarchy or Boy King. That would be my goal for it. So in Anarchy, it plays a little different than Boy King, so you'd have to have like here's how to do it in Anarchy, here's how to do it in Boy King. But that idea of these factions in Salisbury that all spin up around becoming the Marshal could be a lot of fun. Let's see here. Shadow Guider 33 says, what's your favorite traits of each of your current Pendragon campaigns? Yeah. The Nintelids Legacy group, what's great about them is it really feels like they're on like a bro fest. I don't know how to say it any other way. It's like, it feels like a band of brothers thing, and those guys are pretty damn funny. They work well together as a cast, even when their characters aren't on the exact same page. There hasn't been, considering this is a group we literally put together for a pro DM campaign, like really impressed with it. I've grown to like a friendship with every one of those guys, and I hope to keep playing with them. But I think it's important that Ninteliad's story is told, and getting to see these characters develop their roles in King Ninteliad's campaign conquest for High King. It really adds it. It's totally different than the other Anarchy games. The other Anarchy games are dealing with, oh my god, there's so much around us that's big. In Ninteliad's game, they're like, we are the big ones. We're the biggest threat in Britain. It's definitely a change of pace. The Summerlin game, I like how small it is. It really is a manor game, like, and it might expand from there, but it's felt, I've always called it like Mists of Avalon meets Bridgerton. Like the Bridgerton element of that game, with, you know, we really dive into the marriages, the children, the romances, the little enemies, including, like, I mean, one of their chief, or one of their, like, yeah, two of their chief foes at the beginning of the game were friggin' servants, like Cinderella's servants in the house, right? So totally different vibe. But I love being able to tell some of the magic and fairy secrets too. That seemed like the easy answer, but I do love like them all part of the same manor has been a lot of fun to this point. We'll see where that goes from here. And then finally, Salisbury Anarchy. I think Salisbury was chosen because it's this little place out of the way, but they're still tied to Uther and Arthur, and they're right there at the days from when Excalibur's drawn forward. And I like how all the characters in that game have shown this loyalty to the hidden boy that they know that Merlin stole. I think that's the coolest part of that game. Getting to see how those characters all in their own way support that, and support, I guess, Salisbury, because Salisbury had probably the worst scenario to start Anarchy. They had their lord dead, an ill lady, wife of the lord, a boy heir for the lord, and a tweens age female heir. And they've managed to kind of take that, unite Salisbury, which it was very divided. That was around the Marshall's tournament, and even kind of secure an alliance with one of their bigger rivals in Silchester through the marriage of Lady Jenna. So yeah, getting to see, you know, that game is my biggest vignette game. They're almost never really doing anything together other than feasting, but it's fun because then when they get back together, they feast. And it won't always be that way. It's just how Anarchy's been for these old aged knights. They'll very much be together in time of the next arc. Continuing on. The Cat's Meow. What do you think the main draw of running the Great Pendragon campaign is? And do you have any advice for new GMs that want to run it? Yes, absolutely. It's not for someone that picks it up thinking, like, expecting a module. You're in for a world of change. This isn't gonna tell you beat by beat through every year what you're supposed to do. In fact, if you want that, I recommend picking up the starter set for Pendragon 6th edition, playing through that, and then playing through the modules thereafter, because they're going to play out that way a bit more. Which I don't have a problem with. I mentioned, though, I'm not a module guy. When I do modules, I like to carve them up and make them my own, because I tend to find that they're presented for a one-size-fits-all, which means you need to make them for your newbies, your newbie GMs, and newbie players, kind of, in a lot of ways. When they're made for that, your players who are advanced players tend to see those railroad tracks. I do as a player, and I can't stand it. So that's why I tend not to like modules. But what I think is absolutely fantastic about the Great Pendragon campaign, it's more like a guideline. It's more like a guideline than a rule. Sorry, I have to do the whole bit from Captain Barbossa. But it gives you a year-by-year framework from the height of Uther's reign, or if you by the Age of Uther, you can tag 5 years before that. That first 5 years of my prologue, that was the Book of Uther. You want to get that if you want to make it even longer. So, but between those two, you can go year by year. What it does is it summarizes each year from the start of the year to the end of the year, which is Easter court or Pentecost court to Christmas court. And that's the structure every single year. And it's basically just, here's court in Salisbury, who's there, here's some of the rumors. That's like one column. Then it's like, here's an adventure, maybe, or here's the mission or the battle that you're in, and here's here's Christmas court. Here's what happens there. Usually a page or 2 pages per year. A novice GM is going to look at that and go, what the hell is this? I don't know how to run this. Like, this is just notes. As you start to play through it, you're kind of forced to kind of study it a bit more and more Arthurian legend stuff more. And then you start to see it less like you're working off guidelines than railroad tracks. And it makes it easier to run your own game. After you do it in Salisbury, it's really easy to pick up a couple of the other books like Book of Sires and just run your own game elsewhere, like we did with Intellia's Legacy or Summerland. I would have fumbled all over that if I didn't have some experience in Salisbury already. But what's beautiful about that is it gives you a complete close to this generational game of multiple nights. And it's been awesome. Like, I can't imagine having not done it. It's probably the greatest campaign that I've ever played. And what's wild is the only other campaign that I think holds up like that, in my opinion, is Masks of Nyarlathotep, which is a little bit more on the railroad, and it's called Cthulhu. But it's wild that Chaosium managed to get these prolonged campaigns right, and I don't think there's really anything else on the market that's done anything close to that sort of thing. So I know in 6th edition they're planning to break up the Great Pendragon campaign more into era campaigns. I think that's fair because they can give even more detail and options to GMs, because like when you're playing through the Age of Uther, for example, there's a section of, here are some like side quests you can send your players on, like options. Here are some other side story arcs, fit them in. Here are the years they need to fit into, like, you know, after Merlin leaves the island, this one won't work, you know, things like that. But you know, them breaking out into individual small campaigns is smart, but there's something beautiful about like a 300 plus page campaign that gives you everything you need to run like a multi-year campaign endeavor. I think that's really cool. You can take it as long as we're going to take, which is probably like 7 years, 8 years from the looks of it. Or you can run it like Eric Vulgaris did. They're doing it with 2.5 hour sessions, and they're just about to close, and it's only been like 4 years. So if you were to do a full like 4 hour campaign sessions, you could probably have 2 games a year and be done with an 80-year game in 160 sessions. 160 weeks. Not bad. And you don't have to go through the whole campaign. You can decide that you're going to close out during another era. Maybe you want to close out when the boy pulls the sword out. Another good one would be at the end of the Quest for the Grail. You know, or you could pick up with the start of the Quest for the Grail and end with the Battle of Camlin. You know, lots of ways to play short term. Let's see here. Getting down the list. What is my favorite dramatic moment and the funniest moment in Pendragon so far? Oh God. You know, these are good questions. I think probably the number one for me for dramatic was Edward's death. So Mark's character's death in the prologue was like, I think I almost cried. I might have even teared up doing that. There's video proof if I did or didn't, though we are lower res, so you might not be able to notice. But that one hit hard. I think another one, dramatic wise, would be probably in Gathering of Branches when Gwydion dies, an NPC. More dramatic. That one didn't make me tear up, but it made other people tear up, and it hit right. It hit the way it was supposed to hit. And I think we left it to a roll, which is always my goal. Is to, I think if I'm just describing things, sometimes there's a lot of opportunities that are missed. So I didn't want that character to die, but like, because there was like a lot left for him to do in relation to the player characters. Like he meant something to the player characters, but it's also like the right reason to let the character die in a surprising way. It's something I think like Joss Whedon used to do really well, and like Buffy and other things. It's just like really shock you, but it wasn't. It didn't feel as George R.R. Martin as as Game of Thrones did. But it wasn't just for shock; it was for being authentic to how loss happens sometimes. As far as funniest moments, man, there's been so many. I have all these, like, without clear examples, I have all these moments where I know I've watched back and watched myself like losing my breath, unable to like respond. Some of them have happened in Gathering of Branches. Some of them have happened in Salisbury. Nanteliad's legacy is a little bit younger, so there hasn't been as many of those like killing myself laughing moments, but there's been a couple. I think, it's always fun to watch the fumbles happen at the best / worst times. So I can remember losing my mind a couple of times when Lassam Brujas fumble comes his way on a passion. At this point, it's just annoying when it happens to everyone involved. But sometimes it was too funny not to laugh at. Same with Alien and the fumbles. Same with Edric and getting shot by archers all the time. Those are always funny moments to me. One of my favorite moments probably though was when they found out Siagrius killed Matic, and Mark's like, "Hey Bob, can I change a passion?" He's like, "So can I remove trusting Siagrius from my sheet?" Like, that was just well timed. So there's a lot of out of character moments. Florence has had a lot of like crits at the right time, like is flirting. It's like, oh, you need a 7 for this to work. Crit 7. Like, all right, well, I guess you're flirting with. Like, there's been a lot of good moments like that, but I can't say I can narrow it down to like the funniest moment on stream ever. Yeah. Continuing down the list of questions. Getting towards the end here. What's my favorite clan from Legend of the Five Rings? This one I can answer pretty simply. In the card game, it's the Mantis clan, because that's the clan I played in the card game. Before they were the Mantis clan, they were a series of minor clans, which was cool, the underdog, and then they became a great clan. It's a cool story too. It's like well defined in the story. It's something you can play through in the role-playing game. But at the end of the day, they tend to be more like pirates and vagabonds that don't quite lean into the honor stuff as much as I would like to see. So my other favorite clan, because of the character Akodo Totori, is the Lion clan. I think the Akodo family is super cool. I think the Lion are really interesting because there's sort of like, if I were to describe them, maybe like they're a mixture of like the way the Starks were in Game of Thrones, not the whole defending the North thing as much as like they weren't willing to compromise on their honor, even when honor was like, even when that compromise meant better value. And so they're very predictable that way, but they're also like, there's something pure about that staying, or paladin-y that stays with that. They're the ones who invented Bushido in that world. So yeah, those are my favorite clans. How do I feel about the growth and impact of my games as a whole on the community? You know what's funny is I thought about this, and I'll be honest about it. My immediate thought was, what impact, what growth? But that's just me being hard on or impatient, hard on myself or impatient with. I can picture Serpentine Muse capturing that. Anyways, I shouldn't have stopped at those words, but if I'm honest with myself, there's been some really cool stuff. Like, more or less, my server was meant to be a refuge from something where we all played this shared game, and we did it over COVID, and the people I met there were super meaningful to me. I didn't want to just have it fade. I hate when communities just disappear. I didn't want to lose touch with a bunch of people, but I know if you don't have similar things, that just happens. So I started there, and I had a few friends join. It was great, and we were going to start the Salisbury campaign. But there's something to be said about running a TTRPG and having an audience. And I've had this debate with someone recently, because they're like, well, isn't it just more you're just creating some pomp around it? What's the value of it? I think the value is that same feeling you get when your players are like, wow, that was awesome. If you can get people that aren't playing to feel that same thing too, why not expand that? It's such a cool feeling, such a great experience, and no one's force feeding anyone to stay. So the people that are watching and having those same reactions get to watch too. I was pretty honored to be added to the Knights Banneret in the Pendragon server. To be honest, I don't spend a crap ton of time there answering questions like everyone else in those roles does. But it did open my eyes to, okay, if the Pendragon community is considering me someone that adds value here, I need to look at how to best add value. And that's been why I've been expanding. To the TTRPG space in general, meeting Insomnia Night and Lady Magdala, meeting all these people in the Twitch community, meeting Family Tabletop and YouTube, and all the friends around that's been cool. And then just seeing the ability to keep going, seeing the next step in front of me without getting discouraged has been just a ton of fun. I hope to be able to contribute back to show maybe the TTRPG community online stuff outside of D&D, because I think there are some really great games out there that just don't get the exposure. That's my thoughts on that. I'd like to keep going. I'd like to be a little more relevant in the space. We'll see if I get there. It's not the end of the world if I don't. But I think for now, Pendragon's going to be my area of focus, because there's a niche there, and I feel like it's a couple small tweaks away from becoming a popular genre or a popular game even. No one would have said that Call of Cthulhu would be this very popular game it's become 15 years ago, right? It was it's popular enough as a convention game, and there were some great hits out of the big campaigns like Mass and the Thotep, stuff like that. But I mean, most of the books were still black and white. They weren't highly published. They weren't anywhere near where it's at now. Now it's in the top 5 for TTRPGs. And it's a fairly obscure thing. You go anywhere and they've probably heard of The Boy and the Sword in the Stone. You go to Disney, they got the Sword in the Stone. That you can pull out. You can get a kid to like pull the sword out of the stone. I think they use magnets to lock it in place so that everyone else can't do that. Yeah. That might be it. Yeah, I think that gets through my questions. Let me go back to YouTube, just make sure there's nothing else. All right, topic request for another one. What are some tips and tools for pulling a group back together once they kind of go off the rails? Yeah, I can certainly talk about that. It's not a bad idea to keep on that trend. All right, folks. Well, if you're new here, you can follow me for more Pendragon. We have our next game is Summerlin Enchantment on Tuesday, and then we have Antilles Legacy on Friday. Next week we'll be back with Salisbury Anarchy on Sunday, Anarchy in the Vale on Sunday, Anarchy in Londinium. It'll be kind of like a makeup session next week, so there'll be back-to-backs for that 1 week. And yeah, that's everything I'm doing on streaming right now. I hope to have my first Tales of Knights episode out this week, but it's also a crazy work week, so we'll see. That'll depend. I won't be in front of my computer as much to spend like my breaks and stuff doing it, so I might have to wait a whole another week from there. And I haven't booked the exact date on meeting up with John Wick to discuss his TTRPG talks, but we'll expect that probably in late February. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and sign off. Appreciate your likes and follows. Appreciate your support. Take care, everyone.